Welcome to the Hearthstone What's Next panel.
Hola a todos, aquí Mailman Grumpy con otro vídeo de la Blizzcon. En este caso, el panel de novedades del Hearthstone, el jueguecito de cartas.
It feels so real. It's like I'm actually at Blizzcon. Ben, what are we doing with these? What's with the glasses?
Guys, this is crazy. We can't be more happy to be here with you today. In fact, everybody here has already gotten to see the amazing cinematic that Ben Brode announced with our newest expansion. Is that right? We were all here to see it.
Van a hablar de la nueva expansión, la expansión de los Kobolds y Catacumbas. Enseñarán varias cartas nuevas.
But when we do it, we go all out. And with that in mind, we'd like to invite you to pull out your own candle. Place it upon your heads.
Y parece ser que a toda la gente que está allí les han dado unas gafas 3D de las antiguas de plástico de colorines con una velita como la que llevan los kobolds en la cabeza. Y este es el vídeo de presentación de la expansión que ya hemos visto antes en la inauguración de la Blizzcon.
You've signed up the best. You're on a great quest to find the mighty mother lode. There's treasure galore, but perils in store and construction that isn't up to code. Trespass with care, there's sure to be something rare. You can grab all the loot that you can handle. Such riches you'll own, but leave one thing alone. You don't take candle. And if you steal the light, you then must take flight, eluding each hazard and each trap. It's a chaotic race as the monsters give chase.
Todo jugador de World of Warcraft sabe que lo que más valora un kobold es la vela que lleva en la cabeza. Kobolds y Catacumbas. La próxima expansión de Hearthstone.
There you have it. That's the absolute latest in state-of-the-art Kobold VR. Props to our cinematics team for putting that together. So, who wants to hear a story? I have a story for you. You guys want to hear a story? 10,000 years ago,
Hace 10.000 años,
something happened.
algo pasó.
Now, we don't know what happened because kobolds don't write anything down. But we do know that it was around this time the kobolds started to dig. When all the world is crafting war, when shore to shore the warships moor, when sun and skies hold dread, listen up, my son, pack it up and run. Put this candle on your head. When the seas of blood start churning, when the legion comes a-burning, when frets and threats above abound, just grab your pick, light your wick, and dig, dig, dig deep down.
Hace 10.000 años los kobolds empezaron a cavar. Fue cuando se pusieron las velas en la cabeza, cogieron los picos y se fueron bajo tierra.
My name is Ben Thompson. I'm the art director.
I'm Peter Whalen. I'm one of the designers on the Hearthstone team.
Over the next 40 minutes or so, we're going to tell you all about what's upcoming next in Hearthstone. So, Peter, kick us off. What is happening in Hearthstone? What's this expansion all about?
This is Kobolds and Catacombs. This is our love letter to classic dungeon crawling. Gather your party and venture forth into a deep dungeon filled with horrible monsters, terrifying traps, and phenomenal treasure. So how did we get here? For every expansion, a bunch of us get together in a room, we talk about what's next. We've just done Ungoro with its enormous dinosaurs. We've done Knights of the Frozen Throne with the Lich King and his horrible
Quieren que esta expansión sea parecido a una aventura, a una partida de rol, a un dungeon crawler en el que nos juntemos con nuestro grupo de aventureros, peleemos con monstruos terroríficos y consigamos tesoros.
We were going to make the treasure set, and that is how Blingtron's Ludapalooza was born. That's right, Blingtron's Ludapalooza. We were going to explore the history of Azeroth's most enigmatic treasure golem. We even talked to some people on the World of Warcraft team and put the art from Blingtron's card image in our Year of the Mammoth preview. But the more we explored Blingtron's Ludapalooza, the less we liked Blingtron as the heart of the set. We really wanted to do that classic dungeon dive, that feeling of going deep underground and unearthing amazing treasures. And that's how we hit on the Kobold. These are the little rat creatures from World of Warcraft. They've got candles on their head that they absolutely love. They've got treasure that they mine in the earth. And so they were perfect for us. They were going to build us the dungeon, the dungeon that contained all other dungeons inside of it. They would build us the catacombs.
Now the catacombs offer a wonderful opportunity for the loot-minded explorer. There are tons of tunnels and darkened corners in which to get in a lot.
Bueno, están contando un poquito de la historia, ¿no? De cómo va a funcionar la expansión. Hablan de que los kobolds son los que han construido la mayoría de catacumbas, y en las catacumbas es donde están todas las mazmorras que vamos a tener que ir explorando.
So we took it upon ourselves to figure out the mind of the kobold. What does it look like when you're in that small little rat-like mind? Well, you're probably very single-minded. You're probably very direct in your thought. You're probably not thinking too clearly and too straight when you're building these things. And as a result, well, the result is what you end up seeing. There's a lot of loot and a lot of treasure and a lot of places to store it. You hide it in these darkened corners. And you quickly have to find other ways that are both escape routes and entrance routes. You get things like gorges with rope bridges strung quickly across that you have to cross as soon as possible before it collapses beneath you. Open up a lava tube in the wall? Well, let's board that right up and get the heck out of Dodge. Now, ultimately,
qué bueno que los kobolds no son buenos constructores, que en la mayoría de sitios donde guardan sus tesoros pues parecen trampas mortales por cómo lo han construido. Puentes mal hechos, puentes encima de lava, que hacen una sala y tienen que construir entradas y salidas. Y este es el nuevo tablero temático de los kobolds. Hay muchas velas, tesoros, muchas monedas. Y como en todos los tableros hay cosas a las que puedes clicar para interactuar con ellas, que no tienen efecto para la partida, solo el temático. Vamos a ver. A este tío lo han subido solo para que cuente un cuento.
So dig in with claws and paws, and dig, but always trust your schnoz. The nose knows to behold, the smells you sniff, delightful whiffs of silver, jewels, and gold.
This is the treasure set. And if we're going to make a treasure set, we need some amazing treasures, some phenomenal treasures, some legendary treasures. For Kobolds and Catacombs, we have 9 legendary weapons, 1 in each class. Ben showed you this earlier, so let's take a look at the Dragon Soul.
Bien, va a haber un arma legendaria para cada una de las clases. Esta es la que habían mostrado antes, que era la de sacerdote.
you'll get 2 5/5 dragons. Goes up from there. This is pretty cool, but priests aren't the only ones getting legendary weapons in the set. Let's take a look at the mage staff.
A ver, la vara de mago. Alunez. Cada turno robas 3 cartas extra al final.
3 cards. So you're going to be drawing 4 cards a turn, which is pretty cool. It is, however, a 0/3 weapon, so you're not going to be bopping people on the head very much with this. In fact, that was one of the design challenges with having legendary weapons in Kobolds and Catacombs. It's really important to us that all the classes in Hearthstone feel distinct, and some of the classes have weapons, and some of them don't. So in order to get that across, the caster classes, mages, warlocks, priests, have 0 attack weapons in Kobolds and Catacombs. In fact, early on in design, they didn't have any attack or any durability. Those were just not there on the card at all. In playtesting, it felt pretty weird, but we wanted to keep that sentiment, so they all
Bien,
have 0
dicen
attack.
que las 3 armas de las 3 clases de caster, sacerdote, mago y brujo, ninguna de las 3 tiene fuerza para que no puedas pegar con ellas y que luego no se rompan solas.
It comes from more than just an orange gem at the base of that art. Legendary weapons need to feel that not only do they belong to the class to which they've been assigned, but also that they are personas in and of their own right. These weapons have names. They've earned these names. They've gained legend status and become legends in their own right long before they found a home in Hearthstone in many cases. Now, that happens oftentimes in magical weapons through a personality. They gain a little bit of a personality to almost a human-like quality all their own. And in some rare cases can be found to communicate with the hero who wields them.
Cuenta que las armas cada una ha ganado experiencia, cada una tiene su propio nombre por su propia historia, que incluso algunas de ellas tienen hasta personalidad propia.
Some of those, like Alaneth, might be making their way into Hearthstone. So there was another important treasure fantasy that we wanted to get across, and that's the idea of you're running a dungeon and you find something and you don't know what it is. You're raiding the boss's stash of treasure and you find a potion. What does it do? Do you dare take a sip? This is something we wanted to explore. So the design team put our heads together and we figured out a way of doing this with what we call unidentified items. So let's take a look at one. This is
Van a poner objetos no identificados.
Now we know for sure it's going to cost 3 mana, and we know it will give a minion +2/+2, but it also has some kind of other effect, and we don't know what that other effect is.
Gana un buen efecto en tu
when you
mano.
put it in your deck during the deck building phase of the game. And you don't find out what it does until you're actually in the game and you draw the card, and then its true nature is revealed. So,
vale, cuando robas la carta te cambia el efecto.
It's definitely going to give a minion +2/+2, but it might give your minion lifesteal. It might give a minion divine shield. It could do some weird stuff, like give a minion +2/+2 and summon a 1/1 copy of it. Or give a minion +2/+2 and a death rattle to return it to your hand.
Vale, estas 4 son ejemplos de lo que puede salir del elixir no identificado. Es posible que hayan más.
Until you draw the card, you don't really know how to use it, and you need to figure out what delicious flavor you're going to get. We have a video in this in action, so you can see how it
Esto
works.
añade variabilidad a la baraja.
It's unidentified. Right there, it gets identified in your hand. It's the shadow elixir. And we have a target.
Lo que hace que sea posible que se jueguen poco, la verdad. Porque todo lo que hace variabilidad en este juego a los jugadores no les gusta.
We have 3 unidentified items in the game in Kobolds and Catacombs.
Aparte
the unidentified elixir.
del
There's some
elixir,
kind of unidentified shield
hay un
and some
escudo
sort of unidentified weapon.
y un arma.
But we're not going to show those today.
Pero el escudo y las armas no las van a mostrar aquí.
Very good. Unidentified weapons and items are some of the core fantasies that we wanted to explore.
Pero eso está bien.
As the design team sat down at the beginning of Kobolds and Catacombs, we wanted to figure out what are the core fantasies of treasure. Why is treasure so cool? We hit on 2 things, anticipation and progression. Anticipation is that feeling as you open a treasure chest, when you're dreaming of all the awesome things that are inside of it. Unidentified items hit on that. As you draw them, you get that moment where you get to hope, oh, this is going to be the perfect one. For progression, we wanted to capture that sense that as you found treasure, your character would get better, and then you'd find better treasure, and your character would get even better. That's really cool, and so we captured that in the Spellstones.
A ver esto.
This is the
Lesser
Lesser
Jasper
Jasper Spellstone,
Spellstone.
the Druid Spellstone. For 1 mana, it does 2 damage to a minion, and while it's sitting in your hand, if you gain 3 armor, it'll upgrade. Let's see what that looks like. Now it deals 4 damage to a minion. If you gain 3 more armor, you get to deal 6 damage to a minion. So 1 mana deals 6 damage to a minion. It's a pretty good
Las
deal. You might be
piedras
willing to put
hechizadas
some
estas,
extra
los
cards in your deck to
Spellstone,
gain armor to take advantage of something like that.
van mejorando a medida que pasa la partida y de lo que tú hagas.
Some of the other Spellstones
Esta,
are the kinds of
la
things you could build your
Jasper
entire deck
Spellstone,
around.
que es la de
Let's take a
druida,
look at
mejora
Shaman's Sapphire
cuando
Spellstone.
consigues armadura. Y la de
For 7
chamán
mana, you summon a copy of a friendly minion. If you overload a few mana
te
crystals,
envía, te invoca copias
you get 2 copies. Overload a few
de,
more.
de esbirros que
and
tengas
now,
en la
for
mesa,
7 mana, you get 3 copies of a friendly minion.
y si
If you
tienes
combine that with
sobrecarga,
something like Snow Fury
va
Giant
mejorando.
or Alakir, you get instant
Interesante.
army. Let's see that in action.
Ah,
So we've got a Flame Wreath Faceless on the board. We've got Sapphire Spellstone in hand. We'll upgrade our Spellstone to Greater. And now we've got an army of Flame Wreath Facelesses.
ajá.
Brutal. It's pretty awesome.
La verdad es que está muy chulo.
So looking at spell
Se van
stones, these
abriendo.
ended up being a real challenging
También será, habrá
not
una
just
por cada clase.
communication for the player, but also communication for the opponent oftentimes too, so that they know exactly
O sea,
what's
sabemos ya
happening.
que saldrá arma para cada clase,
Now, it's
unos
important, of course,
Spellstone
that
para
these
cada
feel very
clase.
class specific. When you see a spellstone, you should know immediately what class it's ascribed to. Additionally to that, though, what Peter mentioned before is very important, which is you want these to feel as though they're leveling up. You want to feel that progression as you go. So they really need to have 3 very clearly defined states. This ends up being a practice in looking at different silhouettes or colors and changing the palette of the spellstones slightly, all of which help towards getting that sense of progression. Ultimately, the bonus of this is you get the golden version of this, and you've got 3 goldens that are distinctly different from one another and really cashing in on that fantasy of them leveling up in progression. And ultimately, they're some of our favorite effects in the game.
So we've got a lot of treasure sitting here. We've got
Guay.
legendary weapons, spellstones of great power. We've got unidentified items. You put that much
Las
treasure in one
Spellstones,
place,
si
you're
los
bound
consigues
to
en
attract
dorado,
some
tendrás las
unsavory
3 versiones de la carta en dorado.
adventurers.
Y a ver lo de los aventureros.
The bane of every kobold. Beware those armored looting brutes. Beware recruits come seeking loot. Those tromping, stomping louts with swinging swords and for the hordes. They snuff our candles out. Adventurers. You know, we have the fantasy. I mean, this says it's crawling with adventurers. We have the fantasy of not just that you're putting adventurers, an adventurer party in your own deck, but your opponent might be doing the same. And in fact, in the single-player dungeon run mode that we're going to talk about soon, you might be looting the dungeon, and you might run across an AI-controlled adventurer doing the same thing that you're doing in the dungeon, looking for loot, and you might have to fight
Vale.
adventurers. What's the deal with these guys?
En el modo de un jugador que van a meter, mientras estamos jugando, puede que nos crucemos con algún aventurero controlado por la máquina que está intentando hacer lo mismo que nosotros, avanzar en la mazmorra. Y a ver cómo interactuaremos con ellos.
We introduced the guild. We needed you to have a few friends. This is a group of guys that raid the dungeon every week, venturing deep into the Kobold catacombs, and you've already met one of their members. Let's take a look at Marin the Fox. When Marin comes into play, he summons a 0-8 treasure chest for your opponent. We really like Marin the Fox, and he is the guild's chief procurement officer.
Procurement.
He goes out, he finds awesome treasures. So what are the treasures that Marin finds? Let's take a look. We've got Toland's Goblet. Draw a card and fill your hand with copies of it. We've got Zerog's Crown. Discover a legendary minion and summon 2 of it. We have the Golden Kobold. It replaces your hand with legendary minions. And we have the wondrous wand. You draw 3 cards, and they're all free. Marin is pretty fantastic. And the
Vale,
coolest thing about
Marin the
it
Fox
is
es
that
uno
you
de
can
los
play him
aventureros que nos
starting
podemos encontrar
next
y
week.
aparte
It's
pues
free
eso,
for all of our
cuando entra al
players
juego
as soon as
pone
you log in.
un cofre 08
Even better,
en el lado del
if you're sitting
contrario
here
y
at
cuando lo
Blizzcon, or
rompamos
you're watching via the
nos da
virtual
uno
ticket,
de estos
you'll also
objetacos.
get a golden copy of Marin the Fox.
I'm excited about Marin. The only thing I hear here is if I get a golden Marin, I've got 5 goldens for the price of 1, and that seems like a good deal for any looting adventurer.
A todos los que
Pretty
están
awesome.
en
The guild is
la
really cool, but Marin's not the
Blizzcon
only member.
y asumo que a los que han pagado para ver el ticket virtual, o sea yo entre ellos, espero, nos darán la versión dorada
Let's take a look
de
at one
Marin
of
the
those
Fox.
cards. Gather your party. You're sitting in a tavern, you're a warrior, you got 6 mana, and you get to recruit a minion. You'll summon a random minion from your deck, maybe something like the Lich King or Yasharaj. Those are absolutely the guys you want in your adventuring party.
Y reclutar es otra nueva mecánica que hay, que cuando juegas la carta con reclutar, te busca una carta al azar de ese tipo, en este caso un esbirro, en el mazo, y te la pone en juego gratis. Esta te pone uno de coste 4 menos que tengas en la baraja.
Do you want to have any 1s, 2s, or 3s? Do you only want minions that have negative battle cries, things like Pit Lord, or cards with overload, like Flamewreath Faceless? If you summon a minion from your deck, its battle cry won't fire, so those things won't hurt you. We're pretty interested in seeing how players explore with the recruit mechanic and build new decks.
Al reclutar no se activan los gritos de batalla, ni si el personaje que invocas tiene sobrecarga tampoco se activa, con lo que son ventajas todo. Y ahora nos van a enseñar los monstruos que hay en las profundidades de las catacumbas.
So beastly when you dig down deep. Man, this place crawls. What kind of monsters are we gonna find in here, Ben?
Well, what would a dungeon be without its wandering denizens of the deep? Any adventuring party knows as soon as you head into any dungeon, you're bound to run into something. And it turns out the kobolds have got more than their fair share full to deal with. And now, as a result, so do you. As an art team and a design team together,
aquí tenemos varios diseños de los monstruos que nos podemos llegar a encontrar.
We spent a lot of time to try to figure out not just what kind of creatures we would run into, but how do we
que son los monstruos que se han ido encontrando los kobolds a medida que cavaban y han ido abriendo túneles.
A series of faces that only a broodmother could love or fall in love with over time. And many of these would find their way into the set. Many of these would become some amazing cards that you'll have a chance to run into once the set's released. Some of them, however, have to get held over onto another card for another set and another day. So, sorry, Mini Taran, your day will come.
Yeah, the giant hulking Pepe bird did not make it into the set, but did find a place in my nightmares.
You should, however, be prepared for, of course, the random wandering slime or oozes as they find their way down the tunnels. Possibly sentient fungi who found ways of their own to trouble the adventuring crew. As you head deeper still, there will be even more challenges.
Aquí estos diseños ya son más actuales de lo que puede llegar a salir. Osos, furbolgs, hongos, un mímico.
And then finally, as the halls have opened up and the halls get bigger and the end game gets even stronger, we run into some truly fearsome creatures.
El dragón de dos cabezas.
Those are some pretty scary monsters, Ben. Wouldn't it be terrible if you were just walking down a dungeon corridor, minding your own business, going face, and then out of nowhere, bam! Look out! Wandering monster. Sounds pretty scary, but it makes for a pretty cool hunter.
Un secreto de cazador. Monstruo errante.
It's pretty cool.
Cuando el enemigo te ataque, invoca un bicho de coste 3 como nuevo objetivo. Es como la de paladín de Invoca un 2-1. Cubo carnívoro.
We don't talk about what happens inside the carnivorous cube.
El cubo carnívoro se come uno de tus esbirros y cuando muere invoca dos copias de ese esbirro. Ok, por 5, un 4, 6 no está mal.
It was really cool when you got to use Moat Lurker on one of your own Death Rattle minions, something like a Sylvanas, and be able to trigger its Death Rattle multiple times. So we wanted to make a card that better played that up, which led us to the Carnivorous Cube. If you eat one of your Death Rattle minions, you'll get a lot of Death Rattle triggers. But monsters aren't the only scary thing down here. There are also some terrible traps. Let's see one of those. These are the crushing walls.
Ah, el muro. Esta también la habían mostrado antes. Que te destruye dos esbirros enemigos, el que esté más a la izquierda y el que esté más a la derecha. Vale, aquí se están pasando y van a destruir. ¡Oh, qué bonito! Una destraza y un Lich King.
We've got wandering monsters, carnivorous cubes, crushing walls. All right. That's pretty mundane. Those are the mundane things in the Kobold Catacombs. We've got some truly horrifying monsters down here. Some things that are so terrible, they require a legendary ritual to unlock. Let's take a look at Rin.
A ver.
Rin, the first disciple. She's the warlock legendary.
Legendaria de brujo. 6. 3, 6. Provocar. Y te añade el primer sello a tu mano. Te van dando sellos, te invocan demonios. Todo coste 5. Cuarto y el quinto y último. Y te dan un monstruaco. De coste 10. Que de... ¡Ay, por Dios! Destruye el mazo del contrario. Un 10-10 que destruye el mazo del contrario. La gente lo está flipando. Es que ya está. Esto mata al directo.
It's pretty awesome. That's one of my favorite animations.
Destruye el mazo del contrario.
Wow, that is some scary stuff. The dungeon is a terrible place. We've got these powerful adventurers on one side. We've got these
Y este es el que han enseñado ahora. Tienen que haber cosas más bestias.
This is their time to shine. This is when they put their candles together. They pool their resources. And they form an unstoppable army of... Oh, who are we kidding? They're kobolds.
Y ahora la venganza de los kobolds. A ver.
Somehow they're going to have to squeak by. Come beasts that prowl and growl. Come heroes and knights most foul. With our noggins we'll contrive. Always skulking, never balking. We kobolds will survive. I've been reading these verses to you. This is something we wrote early on in the design process because we wanted to explore what does the dungeon look like if you're the lowest monster on the totem pole. We gravitated toward kobolds for a couple of reasons on this set. One is they're the kind of small monster that you might find in all kinds of dungeon environments, so we really like that. The other is there's something uniquely Warcraft about the Warcraft kobolds. The way they use their candles on their head as a mining light. They even have their own catchphrase. Come say it with me now. You know, take candle! Love these guys. We knew once we tried to figure out how to get them into Hearthstone, our team would have a lot of fun with this.
This is in fact how most of us remember kobolds looking from our time in World of Warcraft. The literal tunnel rats of Azeroth, forever beseeching us to refrain from snuffing out their hallowed illumination.
Claro, a ver, los kobolds es el bicho del nivel más bajo que te puedes encontrar en una mazmorra y están en casi todas las mazmorras de Azeroth.
These are some resourceful fellows, and as a result, they've started to look to their own environment to provide the answers. You've got some who fashioned armor out of some of the poorer beasts in the deep. You've got some who've maybe harnessed the more magical.
Y como los Murlocs, pues se han ido adaptando a todas las zonas en las que estaban.
You've even got, as you head in deeper, the crystal veins that run along the walls, and some of them have started to level up their own weapons with that, or to hear them tell it, make diggy things glow bright. And finally, you've got some that have learned the mystical arts of the darker magics themselves. And while they might be just as dangerous to those around
Cavadores de
them, or even
cristal,
to themselves, there's still
nigromantes,
nothing to laugh
kobold
about.
nigromante, invocando esqueletos de kobold.
Now, get to the deepest layers, and some of these guys have found a way to turn some of the denizens of the deep to their own resourcefulness. We've got dire moles that have been used to dig deeper and deeper still, and some of them have even found ways
tenemos
to
un
harness the
jinete de
magical
topo,
properties of wax
un kobold
itself.
jinete de topo.
Truly terrifying if you've made it this far.
We have the idea that the kobolds are sort of making do with their environment as best they can. So if they discover a mushroom cave, they might use these mushrooms to create concoctions to use against adventurers or to use as illumination. Here's somebody you might find. This is Voodoo Master Vex. Voodoo Master Vex is a kobold who was digging
Master
some
Voodoo
tunnels
Vex.
and stumbled on a troll burial ground. Voodoo Master Vex has been hanging out with trolls so long, he thinks he is a troll. He loves
Se
hexes.
piensa que es un
You might
troll
run
porque ha
across him in
estado
the single-player dungeon. And then
tratando
this
con
guy
ellos.
is one of our favorites, Candlebeard.
Y
Candlebeard was tunneling along one day
Barbabella.
and he stumbled on a buried pirate
supongo que lo
treasure.
traducirán como
Now,
Barbabella.
Candlebeard does not have a
Es
ship of his
un
own.
kobold
In fact,
pirata.
Candlebeard has never seen the ocean, but he thinks he's a pirate. His favorite move is charge. Thank you. I'm here all weekend. Tip your waiter.
With all of those awesome
Kobold
kobolds,
ilusionista.
we needed to have awesome designs to go
Común,
with them. And
por
so
4, un
we tried
3-3.
to figure out what different kobolds could do. Here is the Kobold Illusionist.
Y
When he
cuando
dies,
muere,
he's going to summon
invoca
a shadow copy of one of the minions in your hand. That could be
una
something
copia 1/1 de un
innocuous,
bicho que
like
tengas
a
en la
Gadgetzan
mano.
Auctioneer, or a Malagos, or maybe another Death Rattle minion. So you can take advantage of that and do some pretty cool things. But rogues aren't the only ones who get kobolds. We wanted
Y
to
este es de
have
pícaro.
Paladin Kobold too. With all of those adventurers running around in the dungeon, we needed to have a solution. The kobolds were going to throw them in jail. Here's the Drygulch
Drygulch
jailer. When he
jailer.
dies, you get to rescue 3 Silverhand recruits that he'd been keeping in prison. This is pretty cool with some of the
Un
mean
kobold
streets
de
of Gadgetzan
paladín
cards
que cuando
that
muere
buff the minions in
te
your
pone
hand. It
3
also gave us a great
reclutas de
story
mano de
for why
plata en
we
tu
have
mano
kobolds in
porque
Paladin.
los tenía prisioneros.
Now, just who leads these tunnel-digging misfits of Azeroth, you may ask? What kind of luminary would it take to bring all the candles together under a single, albeit slightly brighter, candle of his own? Begin our search for the Kobold King. As we began to take the first forays into what it would take to lead such a bunch of rat men across the
Vale,
world of
pues
Azeroth,
aquí
we knew
están
he would
diciendo
sit on a
que
waxen throne. That much
habiendo
was
tanto
without
kobold,
question.
tanto kobolds,
But would he perhaps be
es
carried through
lógico
the
que los
tunnels on a
kobolds
dais
tengan
of his
un
own,
rey.
carried by some of the smaller,
Y
weaker
aquí
kobolds?
vemos varios
Perhaps, in
diseños
fact,
de
his mode of transportation would be a golem of
los
its own
posibles,
mystical construct.
porque no
Ultimately,
sabían
as it
cómo
turns
hacer
out,
un
all
rey
you
kobold.
really need to be the
Claro.
leader of the Kobold
El
nation
kobold
is
montado
that
en
extra
un
IQ point
elemental,
that it takes to
el
think
kobold
about
con la vela
putting a lantern on the
gigante.
candle around your head to keep it from being snuffed out. And so we ended up with this guy.
Y han
This is our
terminado
first sketch
con
of
este
King
diseño
Togwaggle, the king of the kobolds. We see him
del rey
here
de
in the
los
initial
kobolds
concept sketch
que
with
tiene
the
un
treasure
farol
that he strapped to
encima
his
de la
back for
cabeza
safekeeping,
para
mostly
proteger
from
su
other
vela.
kobolds, probably. And his regal shovel, lest anyone question his sovereignty. And as we see him in the game, lounging on his throne in a somewhat cocky manner, he's pretty sure no adventurers are
Y
going to
el
find their
dibujo
way
está
down to
muy
him.
chulo.
But if you do, keep in mind it's going to take more than just your wits to snuff out this particular candle.
There is a secret to the lantern he wears on his head, and you might discover it if you run across him at the bottom of our dungeon. Hearthstone often has like a host to kind of welcome you to the adventure, be it party hard, medieval, and
Dice que hay un secreto en la vela que lleva en la cabeza en la linterna y que lo podemos descubrir jugando
as our host this time around.
y encontrándonos con
And
él.
he's got a tough job. He's got these ragamuffin kobolds, and then he's got these adventurers,
Y
these
vamos a
monsters.
seguir con la
But he's
historia.
got a plan. He's going to make this situation work for him. Let them come and loot
Sí.
our realm. Let them come, steal boots and helms. Listen to my lamp, you unwashed gaggle. We'll take measures, steal their treasures, and give the best to me, Togwaggle. The Kobold King's plan is going to come into
Tiene un
fruition
plan.
in the
El rey de los
single-player
kobolds tiene un
Hearthstone
plan.
mode
Quiere
we
que
created.
los aventureros bajen para
Since
que
Knights of the
poder
Frozen
robarle
Throne,
sus
Hearthstone also
tesoros
has a full
en
set
vez de
of
que le
cards,
roben a él.
as well as a free single-player mission content. This time around, we wanted to go big. We wanted to capture that fantasy of storming
ahora
into a
nos hablarán
dungeon. You kick down a door and you
del
don't know
nuevo
what's
modo de
behind
un
it. There's gonna be
jugador.
some terrible monster. You're gonna fight the terrible monster. And then you're gonna loot the monster, and you're gonna get more powerful so you can kick down another door, fight another monster, and delve deeper and deeper into the dungeon. We really wanted to capture that fantasy. To that end, we created a whole new single-player experience in Kobolds and Catacombs that we call the Dungeon Run. Best of all, it's playable here on the floor at Blizzcon. So if you're here at Blizzcon, come join us in the North Hall. It's like all the way on the other side of the convention. Really cool, huge Hearthstone area. We have a playable demo, a little subset of the dungeon that you can
Y
check
tienen
out.
ahí
For
en
those of you at
en la
home,
Blizzcon una pequeña demo de
expansion
cómo
comes
es
out in
este modo de
December. You're gonna
juego.
love it.
A ver,
Love
ahora
it
nos
the most. Here's the way it works.
que nos explica.
First, you pick a class. All 9 classes are represented in the Dungeon Run. All of them have slightly different deck building options, and I should say this is a completely self-contained
Bien, habrá que
thing.
jugarlo
You're
con
gonna
todas
build
las
the deck
clases porque
inside
cada
the
clase
dungeon.
tendrá sus
You don't need any cards to play.
cositas
Free play.
diferentes.
Come on board. You pick a class, no matter what class you start with. You're going to start with 15 health and only 10 cards, like a relatively
Y tendremos
weak deck of
15
only
de
10
vida
cards. Everything else you need,
y
you're
10
gonna have to
cartas en el
find
mazo
in the dungeon. And
para
you do
empezar.
that by beating monsters. That's step 2. You fight some different bosses. Now, there's 48 different encounters in the dungeon run, and every time you start a new dungeon run, the game
48
deals out a
encuentros
deck of 8
diferentes.
encounters of increasing difficulty. Your job is to see if you can make your way through all 8. If you beat a boss, then the cool stuff, then you get loot. We have lots of different loot options. We have what we call treasures. These are cards, they're so powerful, we can only put them in the dungeon. We would never print them in the collectible set. You'll build your whole deck around
Cada
these
vez que
treasures.
derrotas
They're
a un
so
monstruo te dan
powerful. You'll
un
also loot
tesoro, que son
cards from
cartas
all the bosses
poderosas,
that you defeat.
que nos van a estar
Cards
para
from all
el
across
juego
the history of
normal.
Hearthstone, cards from this
Y
expansion
luego
and all
los
the previous
cofres que nos
expansions.
dan
You're gonna try and build a
3
deck
opciones
that's gonna
diferentes
get
con
you
nuevas
to the bottom
cartas.
of the dungeon where one of 2 things will happen: fortune and glory, or you get killed. The latter is probably far more likely because the dungeon is a really scary place. It's really, really difficult. And here's the thing, it's all or nothing. So if you're defeated by a monster, that's it. Your tech is
Vale,
gone.
y el Dungeon
Your
Run, que es el
hero's
modo
gone. You're
este,
gonna
hay
have
que
to start
hacerlo
again
del
with
tirón.
15 health and 10
Si pierdes
cards.
una vez,
So let me tell you, when
tienes
you're
que
deep in the
volver a
dungeon,
empezar desde
your
el
pulse starts
principio
really racing,
y
because
así no puedes derrotar
every
a los 8
mistake
jefes.
counts.
Con lo que va a ser algo
that's the overview,
complicado,
that's how it works.
pero
You
será
never know what you'll find
divertido
in the dungeon.
porque
So,
tendrás diferentes,
we'll give you a
una
little sample of
experiencia
things you might
diferente
find
al,
starting with
al jugar
encounters.
normal.
Now, as Dave mentioned, there's 48 possible bosses you can run into in a dungeon. That's a lot of bosses. We don't have time to cover those here today. We can't wait for you to discover them yourselves, but let's look at a subset of 3 of those right now.
Y nos van
The
a
very
mostrar
first one
3
is
de los
Battlecry
jefes.
Jinzo. Now, this is a particularly nasty
Un troll.
It's all in his name. The battle cries played by either you or your opponent, in this case, Battlecry or Jinzo, play twice. Now that makes for a nasty fight, and it's going to take a little bit of thinking to get through that. So put those candles on your head and think through that. The second one is Waxmancer Sturmy. Waxmancer Sturmy is particularly creepy because she's the aforementioned kobold who's found a way to bend the wax to her will and create, in her case, waxen constructs or idols that mimic other minions.
El troll
either
hace
hers
que
or
los
yours.
gritos de
They
batalla
come
se
out
activen
in a
2
1/1
veces.
form onto the board at a time of her choosing, of course on her turn.
El segundo hace
Now, both of these characters are
objetos
playable
raros
here on the floor today
con
over in the
la
Hearthstone Hall
cera de
that I
las
mentioned
velas.
earlier. So try your wits against them and see how you do. The third one isn't even a character. The third one's a room of traps. Now, the
Y
room
el
of traps
tercero
is
es
a
una
rare
habitación
encounter.
llena de
It's one that
trampas.
doesn't show up as often, and you'll be thankful for that because it's actually one of the hardest encounters you will do, and the QA department at
Y uno de
Blizzard
los
can
más
actually
difíciles
attest to this.
encuentros
It's
que
more than any of the
podemos
others combined.
encontrarnos.
Now, it's important here to keep your wits about you because we're not going to tell you a thing about this room. It's super creepy, super secret, and we look forward to you guys diving into this one at the time of release.
So we've got some terrible monsters, and your lowly level 1 deck isn't going to cut it. So we need you to get better. we talked a lot about what are the forms of progression that we want to give you. We settled on 3. First, you're going to find passive upgrades. You'll find 2 of these over the course of your run, and they'll just
Los
make you
tesoros
better.
son
You're just better for the whole rest of the run.
pasivos.
Maybe your minions are bigger. They have +1/+1. Maybe your opponent's minions cost more mana. But whichever passives you choose, the rest of your run, you're just a more powerful adventurer. That's pretty cool. So the
Está
passives are
bien.
cool, but the treasures are crazy. You're going to find 2 of these on the course of your run as well, and they are insane. These are cards so horrifying, we can only let you play them against the AI. So let's take a look at the Gloves of Mugging. You steal 3 cards from your opponent's hand, so they lose 3 and you get 3. Good. Even crazier, we have the Rod of Roasting. This just fires pyroblasts until somebody dies.
¡Oh, ala! La varita
Possibly my favorite text in the expansion.
de quemadura
It ends
esta
games pretty quickly.
es...
So,
Va lanzando
treasures are
Pyroblast,
awesome,
o sea, el hechizo de
passives are
coste
great,
10 que hace
but the
10 de
main way that
daño
you're going to customize
al
your deck,
azar,
and the main way that you can
con
show
objetivo al
that you
azar, hasta
deserve
que uno de los
to
dos
conquer the
jugadores
Kobold
muere.
Catacombs are through piles of loot. Every single boss you beat has 3 piles of loot, each with 3 cards in them. And so you'll be able to choose one of these at the end of every encounter to add to your deck.
¿Veis? Aparte de los tesoros,
These each
cada
are
vez
pulled
que
from
derrotas a
synergistic
un
themes, things like frost
jefe,
spells,
te
or
dan 3
unique
opciones para
cards that take
también
advantage of Reno
mejorar la
Jackson
baraja.
or Inkmaster Solia. So you'll get to make one of these choices after every single boss. So that gives you a huge amount of opportunity to customize your deck and really make it feel like your own.
Y así cada partida
These
tenemos
loot
más
piles don't
cartas en la
respect
baraja
any
y
of the
más
normal deck
variedad.
building rules. So if you ended up not getting the Rod of Roasting and you want to mimic that behavior, you can take 10 Pyroblasts if they're offered to you. It might take you a few tries to get there, but you can build the craziest decks you can possibly imagine using, as Dave mentioned, cards from all of Hearthstone's history. So that's
Ah, y
pretty
las cartas
awesome,
serán de,
and the amount
todas
of
las
customization you have here
expansiones
is
que han
basically
salido,
unlimited.
no solo de lo que sea legal en actualmente el año del mamut.
Gosh, I wish somebody was here to provide a recap for us so we know just how many numbers have been thrown out. We'll wait no more. We've got 9 classes to pick from, 48 possible encounters of bosses in groups of 8 as they get put into an 8-card boss deck, and 40 treasures. How many combinatorics are we talking here? How many options?
I'm glad you asked, because we wanted to figure it out. With all those encounters and all those treasures and all those loot cards and all the different classes, we tried to figure out how many combinations are possible. How many different things could you see during a dungeon run? So we assembled a team of crack kobold mathemagicians to do the math for us. They put their candles together, and over the
48
course of many
jefes,
weeks,
de los
many
que te
snaps,
encuentras 8,
the number they
un
came up
montón de
with was
tesoros.
1.4. Cobillion! Cobillion! Can you believe it?
That is amazing. How big is that?
We have no idea. It turns out kobolds are terrible at math. This was a bad idea. It's a lot. It's a whole bunch. That's the thing that excites us most about the dungeon run is we don't have any
La
idea how
leche.
many combinations are possible. It's going to be different every time you play. That's what
Cada
makes
vez que
it so
juegues será una
exciting.
combinación
We can't
diferente, con
wait
lo
for you guys
que
to try it out next
es
month.
casi imposible hacer dos
Which brings
partidas
us to our
iguales,
final chapter,
encontrándote
which is
los
all
mismos
about
jefes, los mismos objetos,
Are you
los
guys
mismos
ready for
tesoros.
Kobolds and Catacombs? Are you guys ready to delve into the dungeon run?
Y
Well, the kobolds are ready for you. Dig secret doors and ready pikes. Dig hidden pits
solo
with
falta que digan
sharpened
cuándo va a
spikes.
salir,
Hide tricks and traps and trials
porque
around.
si entráis ahora al
They will
Hearthstone
persist.
ya se puede hacer
None can resist.
la típica precompra de 50 sobres.
Leading down. That is Kobolds and Catacombs.
We are
Con lo que no debería tardar mucho.
incredibly excited for this expansion. If you're excited too, you can pre-order now on our website or starting next week in the client. We showed off 14 cards today, and they are pretty cool. We'll start showing off more cards on November 20th, so stay tuned.
Guys, we
El
couldn't be more
20 de
happy to spend the
noviembre
last
enseñarán
45
las
minutes with you
cartas,
here today. Thank
con
you
lo
so
que
much
esto es
for taking
posible que
time out
salga a
of your
principios de
obviously busy
diciembre.
Blizzcon schedule with which to do it. We'd
Puede.
like to invite you over to the North
Es
Hall,
raro
where
que no
many
hayan
of us
dicho
will
ahora
be
fecha.
throughout the course of the convention, and spend some time delving into the catacombs on your own. Until then, thank you so much. Have a wonderful rest of the convention.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Blizzcon.
Y bueno, aquí no hacen sesión de preguntas y respuestas como han hecho en Overwatch. Así que aquí termina este vídeo. Gracias por haberlo visto. Y continuaré en los siguientes juegos que nos quedan. Hasta el próximo vídeo.